poor and low-wage workers who are the most moral people in this country because they go to work every day believing, even though going to work is hazardous to their health. And here's the truth. This may be our last time. This mic, give me the right mic because it sounds at the back. This may be our last chance to do things necessary to abolish the unnecessary poverty and the abolishable low wages that kills nearly 300,000 people. If we don't get this right and despair sets in, you don't want to see what will happen in democracy. And that is what opens up the door for demagogues and despots and would-be dictators. Poverty and low wages are violence, deeply deadly violence. America must face not just poverty in America, but poverty by America. The uniqueness of the poverty here, which is greater than any of the other 25 industrial countries in the world. When Coretta Scott King addressed the Poor People's Campaign in 1968, just weeks after burying her husband that was shot through the neck with a deer rifle, she began by singing, "Somebody's hurting, Lord. Come by here. Come by here, my Lord. Come by here. Somebody's hurting, Lord." And then she said the bullet that killed her husband was only one kind of violence. She then said starving a child is violence. Neglecting school children is violence. Punishing a mother and her children is violent. Ghetto housing is violent. A low-wage job is violent. Denying health care is violent. And an apathetic attitude that won't try to change those things is also violent. America's political system has a heart problem and a moral problem. When the goal of people in power is to love money, the root of all evil, the goal is power to block wages, power to feed corporate greed, power to say no to health care. It's just wrong. Yes. And today you will hear testimony. It's not about me. All I'm setting is the stage. But poor and low-wage workers will lead us today. Yes. Their goal is to turn people's ears into eyes. Yes. We bring a coffin today to dramatize how dangerous and deadly policy violence is. 800 people a day. When 7 people died from vaping, it was a White House issue, a congressional issue. If 2 or 3, if the homicide rate goes up 0.5%, poverty kills more people than homicide, respiratory disease, and many other things. The low-wage voices you hear today are living testimonies. Y'all see them? Telling their stories, crying out against the forces of death. Our government's refusal to fully address poverty and low wage, even after the worst days of COVID, is not only killing our brothers and sisters, it is killing our public conscience. How do you go through COVID and over 1 million people die, 350,000 people died, not from COVID, but from the lack of health care, and you don't have a week memorial, and you can't pass health care in the middle of COVID? That is a damn shame. You call people essential workers, but you treat them like they're expendable. Before COVID, they were service workers. During COVID, they're essential workers. You're essential, but you're not essential enough to have a living wage or paid family leave or health care. I know I don't normally talk like this, but ask your neighbor, what the hell is wrong with that picture? In our campaign across the country, poor and low-wage people, their allies, religious leaders have decided we're not accepting silence anymore. The media blackouts, the silence from our political leaders, 15 presidential debates, not one mention of poverty that affects 135 million people. We are here, we will be seen, we will be heard, and our power will be felt. Turn up this mic. We demand that this nation address the interlocking realities of racism and poverty and ecological devastation, the war economy, and the distorted moral narrative of religious nationalism. We will no longer accept a political narrative and process that is constitutionally inconsistent, morally bankrupt, and economically insane. Refusing to address what's causing so much death is not only bad public policy, it is sin in the sight of God. Isaiah 10 says, woe unto those who legislate evil and rob the poor of their rights and make women and children pray, P-R-E-Y. Deuteronomy 15 says, there need be no poor among you. Not the poor will be with you always. It actually says there need be no poor among you. Matthew 25 says to the nation that you're going to be judged. When I was hungry, did you feed me? When I was naked, did you clothe me? When I was sick, did you care about me? When I was in prison, did you care about me? And when I was an immigrant, did you push me back or did you welcome me in? Our refusal in this nation to address poverty and low wages is a violation of the UN's Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Poor people are denied what politicians have access to. All they have to do is get elected, and they get it all. Free health care, plenty of wages. We haven't raised the minimum wage since 2009, $7.25 an hour.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
The denial is deadly. So we know what we must do. There comes a time you have to call out the problem, but then there comes a time, and I see people with pictures of folk who died. There comes a time you got to go on the offense.
That's right. That's right.
And say, what's in your hand? So we're launching today the most massive voter mobilization and turnout campaign in history of poor and low-wage voters and religious leaders. Poor and low-wage voters, low-wage people have the power. We must use the power to make, because when politics have made it easier to get a gun than to get food and to get education, to get a living wage, to get a health care, something is wrong. Touch your neighbor and say, we must build an offensive. We need a powerful movement of love and justice and truth rooted in the moral principles of our deepest religious and constitutional tradition. We must say what the Constitution says: establish justice, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare for all paths, and that's the only way you're going to ensure domestic tranquility. In other words, no justice, no peace. And our plan is simple. Our plan is real simple. In 34 states, if you can get 200 people to use the best form of technology and the best form of old-time knocking, using your feet, knocking on doors, and they will commit to reach 50 people a day, 6 days a week for 9 weeks, you can reach 18,360,000 poor and low-wage infrequent voters. There's not a state in this country where poor and low-wage voters don't make up at least 20% of the electorate. In every battleground state where the margin of victory was within 3%, poor and low-wage people now make up 36 to 41% of the electorate. We have power. You don't hear it on the media. You don't hear them talking about it in the debate because they don't want you to know the power that we have. 34 million eligible poor and low-income voters did not vote in 2016. If just 20% of those voters in swing states were mobilized around an agenda, they could change the political outcome of every election. Watch this. This will make you holler. In Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and North Carolina, the total margin of victory was 270,000 votes. The number of poor and low-wage voters that didn't vote was 4 million.
Wow. That's sad.
We're not beating up on poor and low-wage folks because the number one reason they say they don't vote is nobody talks to them, and that's true. But what we're saying is, if they won't talk to you, it's time to make them hear you. And so here we are. The leading cause of death in our society are things like cancer, heart disease, strokes, and accidents. But the data also says much of that is exacerbated because of poverty and low wages. What we know is we stockpile opportunities into exclusive communities. And we red zone opportunities. And poverty is not an urban issue, black issue, minority issue. 135 million poor and low wealth kids, 54% of black people are poor and low wealth, that's somewhere about 20, 26, 25 million. 30% of white people are poor and low wealth, that's 66 million people. There are 40 million more white people that are poor and low wage than there are black, but black people are 40% more likely to be poor. And so, we need a movement. I'm getting ready to turn this mic over. Let's move it up a little bit. My voice is a little hoarse, but we need a movement. And the people must become, the hurt people must become the wounded healers of this nation. We need a movement. With our voices and our votes, we must unify. In Hebrew, the word for voice and the word for vote are the same word. Lift up your voice, lift up your vote like a trumpet. We need a movement to insist that death is no longer an option. Tell your neighbor, death is no longer an option. We need a movement to demand that poor and low-wage people will be heard. We need a movement to lift from the bottom so that everybody can rise. We need a third Reconstruction movement to make this country live up to its promises. We don't need to be an insurrection. We are a resurrection that will be felt across this country. Are you ready? Until politics is abolished. Are you ready? Until we have living wages and voting rights and workers' rights and labor rights and health care for all. Are you ready? Until we have affordable housing and end gun violence and profit and population. Are you ready? Until we have clean air. Are you ready? Until we have fully funded public education and just immigration law. Are you ready? Until hate and lies and homophobia and anti-Semitism and Islamophobia no longer have the might. Are you ready? Until the extremist political agenda loses its grip and has to go home. Are you ready? Do you realize these bones can live? The stones that the builders rejected can become the chief cornerstone in building a new reality.